doing the normal thing, if doing the normal choices, if being a normal guy gets you to this really unfortunate, sad, lonely space, then what are you willing to do to avoid it? A man is supposed to protect, provide, and preside, right? But the purpose of male friendship nowadays is to start to do that together across many homes. The church will offer different programs and do different things throughout time and different places, but it's up to us to build Zion and to build the relationships necessary and to make the changes in our lives and our attitudes necessary to be in close enough contact and to be of one heart and one mind.
Welcome to another Key of David podcast. We're here on an interesting episode with a great guest, Michael. And we have the real MacGyver here with us today, joining me as Shane is actually out spending time with his kids. And Trevor is still in Babylon, working on his businesses. And he's got a personal goal to hit his best. And we're looking forward to having him back. And so you've got the Lion here with you, which I'm excited to introduce our guest, Michael. Michael, actually, we've been able to learn a little bit about you and discovered that one of our fans who read your book is how we got in touch with you. And so they asked Shane, who makes himself very available, to be able to get in touch with either through the contact form. We've talked about his email at times on the podcast. Basically, he got contacted by your reader, who also is a fan of Zion Media. So that is actually really fascinating. In case as you're watching this episode, if you know someone interesting, reach out to us. We would love to make that connection and have some of your friends or authors or podcast hosts on. We recently had a BYU TV manager on, and we were going to release that episode. We had Wayne May on in a recording. So these are all episodes that by this point have probably already aired. And so, but we're excited to have you on, Michael. We're looking forward to learning a little about you and getting to know you and your story.
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you bet. So basically, I would love to, we got to talk just a tad bit before the podcast. Mm-hmm. You've only gotten to know about Zion Media a little bit, and I got to get a little bit of an idea of what your book's about. And we'll go through a little bit at a time, but let's start with your membership or who you are as a member. You have you're married, right?
Yes.
6 kids, you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm originally from Texas. My parents are converts to the church from the 70s, and they raised my brothers and I in the church. And I'm just a normal Latter-day Saint living in, like I said, live in the Pacific Northwest. No one's special.
Oh boy. Well, now I've got some really great questions I'm going to ask you a little bit later. I'm looking forward. It just popped up in my head that we're going to have General Conference soon. And yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this General Conference. I think I'm going to be going prepared, like with some prayer and fasting. And so I want to ask you some questions later about what your take is and what you think. There's just going to be, some questions, hopefully guided by the Spirit.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So tell us, you have this book. Actually, before jumping into that, I want to learn a little more about your parents, actually. So how did they join the church?
So my parents were attending what was called Southwest Texas State University at the time, and actually my dad first found the missionaries on campus there and decided to talk to them, and after a month or two got baptized, and it was a big deal in his family. My family, Sicilian Italian, very strong Catholic tradition, and so to break from that took a little bit of talk and discussion, and some I don't want to say reconciliation, but just some questions in the family, right, that he had to get through. And he felt, through the time that he was taking discussions, he felt that the message of the restoration, the message and the doctrine of the church was very familiar to him spiritually. And he felt that he couldn't not, accept the message. A few years later, he met my mom there also on campus and introduced the gospel to her. And in fact, I think it was their second date, he told her, he said, "I can't marry anyone who doesn't believe in this book." And he produced the Book of Mormon for her to look at. And she eventually got baptized, and they got married in a temple shortly thereafter.
What temple?
At the time, the closest temple was the Mesa, Arizona temple. So they had to drive over a couple states to get to it.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a drive to do that. But I bet the excitement was just phenomenal as they were driving and thinking about what the experience was going to be like.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've been married in the temple.
Yes.
So where'd you get married?
We got married in the Draper Temple. We have neither my wife or I are from Utah. We did a stint, both of us, at BYU, and when we were dating, we were just barely engaged. We took a tour of the Draper Temple because it's the open house for the Draper Temple at the time, and we'd say, yeah, let's get married here. Why not? And so we did.
Amazing. Amazing. That sounds phenomenal. Yeah, that's an exciting thing to reflect on. So then, did you serve a mission?
I did, and I actually served in the Utah Provo mission.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. What's that?
What year?
I was there, let's see, from 03 to 05.
Okay, yeah, that's the same. I mean, so I got to learn that I guess we're the same age, and then that was the same years I served, but I served in Cleveland. So tell me the greatest thing you learned from your mission.
I think I learned, I guess, a little bit of humility. I can mention being from Texas. People from Texas have a lot of pride in their state, a lot of pride in their heritage, and um, of my pre-scorm, of my friends in high school, um, I was the only one that didn't go to BYU right out of high school, and I did it kind of out of pride. Like, I don't need to go to Utah. I need to go to school there. And as we were all getting mission calls a year later, my friends were going to, South America, Africa, or whatever exotic place. And then I get my call and I end up going to Provo. And they laughed at me a lot for that, for ending up in Provo. And it was a surreal experience often to be walking the streets of Orem or Provo or Cedar City or Moab or St. George or whatever, seeing the pioneer history of the church right in front of me while wearing a name tag. So it was a humbling, growing experience for me. Practically, the other thing I learned was how the church functions and is organized. In Utah, you get at a Utah mission, you get kind of a speed run of how everything is set up. Every week we would go to 4 or 5 ward councils, 4 or 5 bishopric meetings, 2 or 3 sacrament meetings. And during that time, you just see a lot of different leaders, how they operate and how they tackle issues in the church. And that was a really cool experience for me.
Powerful. Yeah, I think that serving my mission was the first time I really got to see the inner workings of a ward.
Yeah.
And I'm a convert too. So, I if you don't know my story, I joined when I was 15. And so I got to be raised in the church. And I cherish it as a great privilege. But at the same time, there was a lot of things I didn't know. And so I learned a lot of that on my mission for the first time.
Where did you?
Oh, I served in the Ohio Cleveland mission. Uh, yeah, so I'm gonna have to ask MacGyver if he, where he served too, because now we're all talking mission.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, my mission was called the Massachusetts Boston Mission, and it covered Maine, New Hampshire, uh, Connecticut, half of Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So it is new. It used to be called the New England States Mission, and it was a wonderful experience. First time I got to see a lot of things, a moose, and another fun thing. So you definitely learn a lot.
That's awesome. That's great. And so, yeah, I my mission was very interesting because I had Kirtland. I had the John Johnson farm on my mission. We went and did an episode in Kirtland actually and recorded over there. That was a fun experience to go back there. Wish I got to experience it with other missionaries. They don't have that mission anymore. Now it's been basically joined with the Columbus mission, which makes me, I mean, it's nice that we have the Kirtland Temple, but it also feels a little odd to think that my mission's not there. But I don't think we saw a single missionary when we were actually in Ohio too. So, but so tell me, like I'm curious about your book, and I want to know, like, how did that come about? Like, what's your book about first, and then how did you come about making that book?
Yeah. So the book is called "Only the Weird Will Survive," and I like people's reaction, like, well, what is that? Only the weird will survive. And the idea came from, um, I guess, several my adult experience, right? As I got older, I had several experiences that, as a man, as a member of the church, as a father and a husband, that kind of led me to believe, or led me to think that if um, doing the normal thing, if doing the normal choices, if being a normal guy gets you to this really unfortunate, sad, lonely space, then what are you willing to do to avoid it, right? How weird are you willing to be and to live? And Latter-day Saints, we already kind of experienced this, just being a minority faith, right? Like we understand that we're not completely normal, but we don't do things like the average American, for example. But even within the church, you think about the average male experience, right? You go on a mission, you get married in a temple, you then start being a husband and a father. And I experienced this by my late 20s. I realized that I don't have any friends. I don't have any people that I can be really close to. And, I was a really social person in high school and college. I had a lot of really good friends. So I was like, well, I must be something wrong with me now. I should go and find, male friendship, fraternity, and have really close buddies again. But in trying that, I realized that most other men that I come across have the exact same problem. They don't really have any close friends. They don't have any any group that they could say, this is mine. I belong to this. They go do their job. They come home, spend time with their wife and their kids, and there's really no outlet for them at all. And that's normal. That's, I think, the normal male experience now. And so if that's normal and that sucks, why do I want that, right? How weird am I willing to live? How weird am I willing to be in order to create a different experience? And the same thing goes for getting married and having a family now, where, if you go back, I don't know, 100 years or so, 90% of men just got married. That, is the stat, that you just had to essentially exist and you ended up with a wife and kids. Yeah. They estimate now that maybe 45% of Generation Z may never get married. I don't know what the stats are within the church, but I'm sure that we're just nearing or a little behind, those aggregate or those, average stats.
I hope that we talked a little bit about the Oracle app beforehand,
Yeah.
and Shane, Trevor, and I have discussed like the possibility of that app helping people to find a partner.
Oh yeah.
And it's because it goes really into depth on who people are and like their personality traits. And we found that there's a potential here to change dating for the world if we're able to, produce this app, which it's already in development, it's already in the process, um, and we're putting a lot into it. It's going to be an amazing application. This could transform dating in a way that it could help you find a twin flame potentially. So, this is just me kind of excited about it personally, but I'd love to change that for men everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We I don't think we appreciate the social technology, if you will, that allowed men and women to kind of just pair up by default in previous generations. And we may need apps and that kind of help to reestablish some of that social technology, so we know how to pair up again. So anyway, the book kind of goes through different facets of a man's life and says if normal leads you to a place that's not good, and if this is the normal thing that society expects of you, what can you do differently? How can you take matters in your own hands and lead a life and make choices so that you you end up where you want to be, right? For Latter-day Saints, we end up, you know, um, in the temple with a wife and children, with friends, with a community of saints that we're helping to build Zion together.
Mm. And um, I love that. It reminds me of Shane's book, which is The Honest Lie, and I think the subtitle of it is to help people break out of the matrix. And that, I feel like in some way you're talking about the same thing, where the matrix is that routine, life that we have been set on. And, that doesn't leave a lot of fulfillment or edification. And, it's not really great for men or women and or even children as well.
Yeah.
They're, we're on this rat race or this path that's been set by us, not necessarily by God, but, maybe even by the adversary. And, here we are. In fact, some would say that, well, we learn about it in the temple is Satan declares himself the God of this world. And he's definitely made a point to make that a reality. And, if we can be able to snap out of it and get on the right path, we all could be edified and enriched. So I really like that's how you talk about that. Is this book just something that's really great for men? Is there a good reason for women to read it, or others?
Yeah, so the subtitle I should have mentioned is, the title Only the Weird Will Survive. The subtitle is A Man's Journey to Community. So it's definitely focused on men and choices that men can make in their life. But I think that there's a lot that women can do that would help men on this journey. So I think it's worth women reading and sort of getting familiar, becoming aware of what men's needs are when it comes to friendship and community and relationships, because men and women are different, and what we get and how we interact with our friends, what we get out of and how we interact with our friends are different. And I think one of the worst things you can do is treat a man relationally as if he was a woman. And so if you're a woman, you read the book, you can get an awareness of, well, how can I best help my husband or my son or my brother or whoever else, whatever else it might be in your stewardship, to positively make changes in their life. They're not a woman, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, your book is on Amazon, right?
It's
Or
actually
how
Amazon.
do people get it?
So it's through my printer lulu.com. And so having it not on Amazon was a conscious choice. I actually in a previous career I used to work Amazon corporate, and I just with my time there, I not really a big believer in the company. And since I was writing a book about how to establish community, how to build relationships, how to um, get men to take more ownership, if you will, of their lives, it felt a little hypocritical to put it on Amazon. So I'm sure it would be easier to see and buy if it wasn't Amazon. But yes, there it is right there.
Okay, yeah, so this is the right page. So they can go to lulu.com. I did a Google search where I just typed in lulu.com and then only the weird will survive. That's how it popped up in my Google search.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thanks.
go ahead. I was just wondering if you had a website, maybe a personal website, or do you have a blog or that viral blog? I hear that you had a viral blog that kind of helped set you on this path.
Yeah. The genesis of the book was an early Substack post of mine. If you go to Build the Village is a Substack. That's the one I write, and there I write an article every week about something related to men, community, how to help fathers to be leaders.
Got it. So I think I just found it. I am curious too that I guess this is the article here, and
Yeah,
I thought this was funny. A very expensive, professionally made graphic from the Post.
yeah, yes.
But yeah,
This was a follow-up article. Yeah. So
Michael, I've got a question. In this day and age, men are tapped for resources typically. You've got your either 9 to 5 or your job that takes up 60, 50 hours. You've got just your daily chores. Let's say you're married and you do have kids. You have a relationship with your wife. You got a relationship with your kids. You may or may not have a calling. You might have some hobbies. You might have just a time and resources crunch. How do you overcome that with your techniques or things that you've learned?
yeah, I think what you're bringing up is very common in writing my book. Before and after, I've talked to hundreds of guys, and a lot of them have the same experience. And some of them will even say, well, what do I need friends for? I don't have time for friendship. And I think the first step to addressing what you're saying is realizing that the purpose of friendship as you get older is very different. Obviously, when I was 10, I had needed friends to come over and play Super Nintendo with me and have pizza or whatever, right? But now that I'm 40 and I have a family, what the role a friend has in my life um, is very different. That in many ways, a friend is supposed to add a coherence to my world, a consistency to my world that I can't get from my job or from other external sources. And that friendship is in many ways not only for us as men, but for our families. Um, and so, we talk about in the church how a man is supposed to protect, provide, and preside, right? And we kind of do that individually in our own homes. But the purpose of male friendship nowadays is to start to do that together across many homes. And this is already a little bit in the church, right? Through ministering and through elders quorum, that we're supposed to come together intentionally with purpose to protect, preside, and provide over an entire ward or over an entire quorum. And so I think the first step is catching that vision, understanding why it's important. And then the second thing, and there's a lot in the book, um, I guess in more detail, but just starting to take the steps that allow you to be in contact with other men in meaningful ways. And so that can be organizing a men's group. It can be finding ways to work with guys in your ward or your stake or your neighbors, adding some stakes and some depth to your relationships. And I'm kind of wandering and meandering, but I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, I found that when I was in the middle, when I had kids at home, I had a ton of stuff I needed to do around the house and in the yard, and my full-time job, and then taking care of the needs of my wife. There wasn't much time except to relax at night with my wife and maybe watch a show or read something, or sometimes just drop into bed. So carving out that time, that's, I don't know if you address that in your book very much.
Yeah. One way that I have found is that helped me personally, and it's not necessarily a practical step, at least not a step one, is being self-employed. Because I felt that pressure a lot more when I was in corporate America, and I had a job that essentially competed with any sort of, like you said, fraternal or friendship time. The biggest advantage of owning or having a say in who you work with is you can work with friends, or you can make friends out of the people you work with. And then that 40, 50 hours a week can serve as that you put into your job can serve as sort of double duty, right? You're not just working for someone who doesn't know, doesn't care, and doesn't have your family or your community's best interest at heart. You're working with people that then matter off the clock. And so, like I said, it's not necessarily a practical step one, but it's something that I found to be very powerful in my life and the lives of other men who are self-employed, or who have, if not self-employed, at least an ownership or a choice in who they work with.
I've got a question here. Is for myself, I found that I mean, we're the same age. We've probably lived many of the same kind of experiences, and I can relate with being in, well, now 40, you're probably the same age.
Yeah.
Where And I'm exactly that. I don't have very many other friends that I can be social with. I have my friends at Zion Media, which is phenomenal. Shane, Trevor, Greg, and some other people behind the scenes, Latter Day Chad. But I also find the value in having some variety in my friends, and just getting to know some other folks. There's like one friend that I've always kind of turned to, which was an old commission companion. What does your book give any advice, or do you discuss how to build out this life, or build out and fill in the gaps that, for men, what they lack in, that's created this kind of hollow experience?
Yeah. I would say that one of the things that a big challenge that men will face, if they want to have more friends in their life, is that most of us, up to a little bit of what you said earlier, that we kind of build this cocoon around ourselves of kind of our preferences, our comfort, our likes and dislikes, right? And as we go out and as we meet with other guys, or start to build meaningful relationships with them, we find that it can be very painful or awkward or uncomfortable, right? Because at our age, we are who we are, and if you and I, David, were to be in the same ward at this point, there's 80 years of history between us that we'd have to overcome almost to be, really good, close friends. And so helping men get through that transition phase, and showing them that, there's value in these friendships once you get on the other side of that. And once again, we don't make friends like women do. There's this old saying, I don't know if it's in the book or not, but that I've heard, and maybe you guys have heard, that women make friends face to face and men make friends side by side. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. And I find that to be the case, that you don't necessarily make friends with other guys just by talking to them about your feelings or about your experiences.
Yeah.
You make close friends by going out and doing something with them. And so in the book, I talk about different facets of how to go and do things, whether it's working together, whether it's competing together, whether it's like in the church where we're asked to minister and to be involved in each other's lives, to serve and to help in each other's needs. I found that in my callings, for example, my friends end up being the guys that I do difficult things with. And finding ways to do difficult things with other guys is probably one of the quickest ways to make friends.
It's interesting you said that, because I have found, like, in my wards, some wards I've been in, we would find a couple, and we would invite them over for dinner. And sometimes we'd even basically, like, we did a little game night where it wasn't a typical game night. It was a chop challenge where we would cook in the same space, in the same kitchen, not necessarily together. It was more of a competition.
Yeah.
Chop challenge should be. And it was like side by side. So where in one case we invited this family over for dinner, we got to chat, and it didn't really build that connection like you described. But when we did the chop challenge, I felt a lot more of a bond with these people, especially the guys that were involved in this. And it was like, I actually wanted to say hi to them in church. I want to say hi to everybody. I want to, of course, do these things naturally, but like you said, the cocoon that we have at different stages of life, I had to overcome some of my cocoon before doing this chop challenge. Now, after doing that, I already spent side by side with them.
I just visualized competitive knives going on in the kitchen, knives out, sword fighting.
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of that. Not so much sword fighting, but there was a lot of chopping competitively.
Yeah, that reminds me. So we homeschool, and a few years ago, in fact, I should do it again. But a few years ago, I hosted a feats of strength contest for the dads in our homeschool co-op, and they all came over and we competed. We did shot put throwing. We took a fence post and see who could flip it farthest. We did tug of war. We did other things where you had to compete, and that was definitely a more relationship forging experience than discussing a gospel principle, for example.
I think that's why you see a lot of men doing these outings, like survivalist type outings, where you go out into the wilderness as a crew. You might learn how to fish. You might learn how to do some of these camping related things. And like, I have a guy that I used to serve at the temple with down in Orem, and he would lead these people on this group men's outing, and they'd go to Alaska. They would they would basically fish salmon, and they would get crab and or crawfish or whatever. And it was just he would show me these pictures, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. When can I do this? And it seemed like that's one of the most effective ways to really build those bonds.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we should have these big transcendent experiences, and in the book I talk about that, and I talk about offering that experience to teenage boys in the form of ritual or rites of passage. But I think the challenge is, as the Real MacGyver said, integrating that into your daily life, finding ways to make our time count for multiple purposes.
Yeah, daily life could change very soon here. I'm just thinking about the last days and prophecies, and like we may be needing that sooner than expected. I'd like to believe that we can kind of make these, days before the Lord comes a lot easier, and rewrite scripture, rewrite history, because we're living it. We literally can, if we can get enough people to have the faith that we can be more repentant, more holy, more righteous, more thoughtful, be one heart and one mind, I think we can get there. And maybe we don't have to go through some of the hardships. And during that time, we're building those side by side bonds.
Yeah.
I mean, my dream is to go, in each ward, spend a little bit of time in each ward, a few years, where I can invite, like, as a convert, this was the most impressive thing I saw in the ward that I got baptized in. And basically, that ward, they would invite my mom and my grandmother, who joined the church after me, to dinner, and we would get to break bread. We do different activities, Thanksgiving dinners, and it was just this harmonious, like, each different ward. Not everybody in the ward did it, but it felt like some of the core families did it, and I would love to see that happen in each ward, that I'm a part of, or that I'm not a part of, where we just break those cocoons and start really doing chop challenges with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. What you say. Oh, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm 64, and when I was young, the church sponsored softball tournaments, basketball tournaments, other kind of things like that. Mm-hmm. And they stopped it apparently because of things got too competitive. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't in the decision-making process, but I miss that opportunity to be on a team with your local ward in basketball, in softball. We had volleyball. And those were some of the most enjoyable experiences I had from my childhood and my young adulthood before that all stopped. And so I guess we have to recreate the wheel and get that going on our own. But having a team, having a coach, having people that play positions in a better thing, and, win or loss, you always shook hands, and it was just really good. And just some of the most positive experiences. Now, there was some people that lost their temper or whatever, but it's a learning experience as well to learn how to have good sportsmanship, because they had sportsmanship awards as well as the win and loss record. And so I don't know if that ever would be a thing. I don't think it is with the culture the way it is right now, but it was a wonderful experience. And if it could come back, I think it would be helpful. There was a lot of missionary work that was done that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that you just said that, MacGyver, because it just brought me back to memories as a youth in my ward in Palm Harbor, Florida, where I remember one time we did indoor soccer, we did indoor hockey, with just on our feet with the pucks and hockey sticks. And it was a lot more aggressive, a lot more fun, just be able to have control over your feet and to be able to get access to the puck. I think we even did a little small, plastic, rubber ball as our puck instead of a typical puck. And man, I just remember some of the, best shots that were taken. That will probably always stay with me, but I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, any other thoughts that, Michael, on, this section? I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah. There's a quote that I'm struggling to remember where I saw it just the other day, and I don't remember who it was from. I think it's from either a current general authority or a previous, relatively recent general authority, that said something, tying what you guys are saying together, that, the second coming isn't happening yet, not because of the world isn't isn't wicked enough. It's that, we as a church need to stand up and have a people that's righteous enough, right, to essentially bring to pass the Zion. And like I said, I may be butchering that quote. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it dovetails into what you're saying, is that it's up to us. I feel like the church will offer different programs and do different things throughout time and different places, but it's up to us to build Zion and to build the relationships necessary and to make the changes in our lives and our attitudes necessary to be in close enough contact and to be of one heart and one mind, so that I don't know, so that we're living the gospel and some of that is just as simple as getting together to play basketball, getting to play some sports.
So what I'm gathering is most of your book was compiled and written by those experiences and things that you saw amongst other men. Are there any stories that you share in your book that you'd be willing to share here on the podcast? People's experiences and things that you observed.
That's a good question. The book doesn't have a ton of personal stories. It's more like you said, taking like the genesis of many stories, and then what do we do about it? How do we form community? What dimensions along should men focus on in their life to form community? But I can say that, like I said, in talking to a lot of guys, the most common experience that I think most men have is they have, and maybe this is a repetition, but they have one or two really good friends from their youth that they still stay in contact with, that they feel like get them. And even if they don't talk to them very often, it's something that it's a relationship they still cherish. But almost everyone they meet from, early 20s, mid 20s until they're old, the relationships are more transient and transactional and don't have the depth that this one or two good friends from their youth have. And that's a tragedy. It's like you said, there's a lot of need to reverse that and to meet the social, emotional needs that men have, because we do have them.
Yeah. No, you bring up an awesome point, because I'm looking at you. We're both the same age. We, grew up the same experiences in the 90s. And I'm thinking, man, how cool would it be if I could just reach across this internet, or, find some time where you come to Utah or I come to where you live, and, we get to spend some time together and bond. It makes me wonder if there'll be any kind of outings that we, either organize ourselves or like with Zion Media, we have plans to take people on trips. We went to Mexico, which was phenomenal. We took about, I think it was four different of our fans, 4 to 6 of our fans out to Mexico. We had a remarkable bonding experience. And then we also went ahead and, we have other plans to see the solar eclipse in Egypt. These are things that we plan on doing. But it would be great to, get to know you better. And, maybe in some timeline, if time travel is a thing, maybe in some timeline, there would have been an opportunity where I would have met you at the MTC. That would have been great.
Maybe they were there at the same time. Who knows?
Well, I started the same years, 2003 to 2005.
Yeah.
And I mean, only currently just in our imagination as it stands, but it would be great to be able to reach across again this internet and be able to say, hey, how about we go see the new Chosen that just came out, or have a chop challenge of our own.
Mm-hmm. So I got a question for you in your book or just in your daily life, or recommendations for any of our listeners. What would be, say, I don't know if you have a checklist in your book, or if you've got a 1, 2, 3 action items that you've seen be successful. Do you have any kind of action items that the general audience here of guys can implement into their daily activities or their life? on the weekends or however.
I appreciate your question and nailing me down on specifics. I'm not much of a checklist guy, and so I think the book wasn't quite written in that way. But to answer your question, um, the the way that I guess if I were to try to make a checklist out of this, the way that I would think about the advice that I have in the book is sort of a process. Each chapter, like I said, the subtitle is A Man's Journey to Community. So each chapter is about a stage of this journey where you start off as a guy who is the normal guy today, a very isolated man, and you get to the point where at the end of the book, you're a man that enjoys real fraternity and community. And so the checklist, I think, if you were to do 1, 2, 3, I think the first thing is take stock of the things that isolate you. So there are things that isolate every single one of us, and they're disguised as sort of our likes, our interests, our hobbies, barriers that we unintentionally put up that make us hard to get to know. The second thing is one thing I already mentioned a little bit is find ways to make your time do double duty, right? Find ways to say, like you said in the Guyver, we're super busy. We have a lot of things going on. Where can I do double duty? One simple example of this that a lot of guys could do, we don't, most of us, but we could, is have lunch with other men. Everyone has to eat lunch. No one skips. Well, I shouldn't say no one. Most people don't skip it. And so go out to lunch with guys. Invite them over to your house if you work remotely. A lot of people work remotely now. There's probably a lot of people that working remotely in your neighborhood that you could have over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would say a third thing would be what we're talking about too, is once you've realized what your barriers are, once you have just even the tentative relationship or the beginnings of a relationship, go and do something hard together. And we've mentioned a few examples. Those can be physical challenges. Those could be team-based. We can go travel to Alaska or whatever. I had a lot of personal success doing hard things with guys in the business or in the professional world. And that forges a lot of really close relationships, I think. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does, because sometimes you don't even realize what isolation patterns you're in.
Yeah.
And you're just doing the same old thing and whatever, video or TV.
I'm thinking about sometimes it is a Truman Show quote, and that is, we accept the reality that we're presented with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we can get lost in the sauce unless someone from the outside comes and it influences our experience. And then sometimes too, that is the presentation of the reality too, when someone comes in from the outside. But at the same, you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, I can appreciate what you had said, MacGyver. And I did have another question about your book. Do you have any spiritual insights that you share? Like, do you go in a spiritual component in your book, or share any scripture?
Yes, I do. I quote quite a few scriptures, quite a few prophets. The book, obviously being a Latter-day Saint, I wrote it from a Latter-day Saint perspective. I didn't include too much because I wanted it to be accessible to a non LDS audience. But it was a spiritual journey for me as well, writing the book and researching what prophets and what apostles and what scripture says about fraternity and community. And something that was a high point for me spiritually in the book is, once again, I don't have this quote memorized, but it's a Brigham Young quote, and he's talking about how, if in the celestial kingdom, if in heaven there's the streets are paved with gold, it's because the angels went in the mountain and they put the gold there themselves. And then he likens it to, Utah in the mid 1800s. If this is going to be Zion, if we're going to have gold in our streets, we got to go up to the mountain and we got to get the gold and we got to lay it ourselves. And I find that to be, an essential part of our agency and the plan of salvation, right? That God wants us to act and to not be acted upon. And so if we see something that's a problem, and if we see something that we want to be better, then it's up to us to go and to do that. And because we're doing good things, because we're acting in the Spirit and we're trying to bring about God's work, he's going to bless us and he's going to sanctify and he's going to help us in our efforts. But it's up to us to actually go and do the work.
Have you done any surveys or any personal observations on what percentage you think of LDS men are living in a joyful state?
I have not done any official surveys, but like I mentioned, I've talked to hundreds, maybe even, I don't know, maybe more than 1,000 guys. And I think it's a pretty good sample of LDS men, most of whom are between 30 and 50, the demographic that I speak to. And I would imagine that depending on how you define joyful state, it would be probably way smaller than we would want it to be.
So joy in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary says the passion or emotion excited by the acquisition or expectation of good, that excitement of pleasurable feelings which is caused by success, good fortune, the gratification of desire of some good possessed, or by a rational prospect of possessing what we love or desire, gladness, exultation, exhilaration of spirits. I mean, many, many people that live now, and especially since COVID and the whole work from home and just the change of life, are in a rut and drudgery and isolation and just misery.
Yeah. I mean, even look around your average elders quorum, right? I don't know that I would call most elders quorum classes a joyful state. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Very good. Very good. Well, I appreciate this conversation, and I'm blown away by you, Michael. I feel like you put a lot of thought into your book and just the consideration of men's experiences, and it sounds like you've been able to make something really phenomenal. And I'm curious too a little bit more about how you came about with the book. If you have anything more to say about that experience, because you said it was a spiritual experience. Did you put a lot of prayer into writing these pages, or did you consult with, maybe mentors or others that really inspired you while writing the book?
Yeah, I did definitely make it a matter of prayer. And I feel very strongly that that one of my, jobs on the earth is to share this message, right? And to help men to be able to get the help that we need, right? And to build the communities that we need, and to stop living isolated, lonely, sort of joyless existences. Because the gospel's here, right? I mean, we have the framework for it. But I think what's missing oftentimes is the daily context for relationships.
Yeah, so the job of our Father in heaven and Jesus Christ is to bring to pass the eternal life, the eternal life of men. But if you've got what kind of life is that? So we have to be living the joyful life and the meaningful life and the productive life and something that you're excited about. I worked for a corporation for many years And for a while, I just dreaded every single day, every single moment until I was able to turn it around. But I quit last July, and my joy factors are through the roof in comparison. So just what you talked about, self-employment, or just the type of employment instead of a grind and you being the grain of corn or wheat getting ground between the mill. I mean, having something to look forward to grow instead of turning to a bag of flour, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's really insightful. And you think about not just joy for ourselves, but we're being watched by our kids all the time. And if we say, yes, being a Latter-day Saint father and husband is this great, wonderful experience, but they see us all the time living without joy or just kind of floating through life without friends, without relationships, without goals, without doing hard things, then I imagine that affects a lot of youth. And it's like, do I really want that life? The world's offering me some stuff that looks a lot more fun than that. Direction.
This is, I tell this Shane all the time. I mean, I mostly want to chill. I want to just take it easy. But my perfect view of life is being able to not have to work in the sense of the rat race, unless it's something you're passionate about. Like, I love building. I love the grind of building something you love. I would love to have a comic book company making media that inspires and uplifts people. And I'd love to, after that grind during the day, I'd love to come in my afternoon, greet my family, give them all hugs, and either spend time with them and maybe periodically spend time with the boys,
Yeah.
have time on the weekends or like Saturdays or in the evenings, just like, hey, we're going to go, chop some wood. I don't know. And then, enjoy worship on Sunday. Like, that is like my perfect life and how I see it. And of course, my work might change, if there's a way to multitask and build a comic book company while, serving my mission for the Lord. That's the number one thing, is being able to do what the Lord wants me to do and surrendering to him with a little bit of joy of what I enjoy to do on the side,
I want to see, do you have a comic book now?
No, but
I want to see your first comic book.
Yeah.
ASAP. How long is it going to take you? How long
It might take a lot shorter time. I mean, Open AI just came out with this wild ability to I could take your photo, MacGyver, and I could give it. And
I know. But still, you're a good little artist, right?
Yeah.
So just sketch it out. I want to see it on a paper, like the little storyboards. Just make me a storyboard one, man. Black and white, color, whatever. I want to see it in 2 weeks. How's that?
Okay. All right. Let me
Spot, David.
Yeah, I know.
14 days is the cycle. You've got the new moon and you got the full moon, you got the 14-day cycle. So we can nail it.
I'm curious. I just shared what my perfect life I would love to build is, and it includes the Lord. Could you share my MacGyver, what you would love to see? And then maybe, we can also have, of course, you, Michael, share how you envision that. Because I think that I'm saying this because as men are watching this and women are watching this, it I think would be a powerful thing to start visualizing this new frame of life, instead of being stuck in the cocoon.
Well, I'm doing it right now, as we speak, and then the other things associated with Zion Media and Zion Streaming. And I help Shane with his real estate. I mean, we went out there and we just sweat in the summer, doing the stuff, doing the hard things. Yeah. I was the skilled labor. He was the unskilled labor. So we're still in the mix of we're not doing as much hard labor, but we're doing difficult things, aren't we?
Yeah, I would definitely say they're difficult. Michael?
I would say that over the last 5 or so years. When did I quit Amazon? Yeah, about 6 years ago. I have been trying really hard to create that like ideal, perfect, life. And for me, kind of what it looks like is there's this writing slash studying and pondering component, and I get that a little bit through the book and through writing my Substack every week. But I've really tried to fill most of my work time with ways to connect with other people. And so I do a little real estate, I do a little consulting, and so filling my life with opportunities during the day to spend time with other guys outside of my cocoon and with people that I know and that I like or I would like to know. And that's something that I've been really trying to be intentional about. And as my kids have gotten older, trying to bring them along into that with me so that they have experience with adults doing cool and interesting or at least hard things is something I'm trying to do.
That's really great. It makes me think about including women in this experience too.
No women.
Well, I was just saying.
I was gonna say it, but
Well, I'm only saying just because sometimes women can really, not sometimes, a lot of times they can enrich our lives in ways that men just can't do by themselves. And children also, having our own kids, and how it makes me wonder if there's anything next for you in those areas. Like, I don't know if you have plans to write a book and kind of expand on this idea of connection. Because I love what you said. Like, I'm now going to make it a personal goal that in my daily life, I'm going to look for ways to connect with people, of both male or female, and of course connect with my own kids.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've actually started outlining a couple of other books. One is how to essentially build connection through your work, through the work you do, the way you earn money. But then the other thing is, like I said, we're big homeschoolers. It's very common. I don't know how common it is in Utah, but it's very common in Washington where I live to homeschool. And looking for I want to write something more in depth on how to help dads, fathers to lead out in the education of their children. Because homeschooling is a very female, very feminine space traditionally. And so what can men do to, especially when it comes to education of their boys, to lead out on that effort?
Anyway.
Oh,
I also had a thought about some new blog articles, or at least some Substack articles you could write based on this conversation. Maybe that checklist, make it into one of your future posts, or in fact, is it? I guess it's just that build. Let's see, what was it called? Build a village. Build a village. Yeah. So people, if they want to come and read your articles on Build a Village, they can go there. I guess it's an interesting domain name. I guess it's just mperrone.substack.com. I'm gonna put this.
in Perrone.
Oh, that's the Italian there.
Yeah, I haven't actually. No, thank you for putting that up.
Yeah. No, it'll be in the description, and so because again, it'd be great to see more of your writings and to be able to keep track of what other works that you might release in the future. And man, this is I've enjoyed this conversation, and I would love to say that you're welcome to come back to Zion Media anytime and share more about your insights about people connection, because this is an aspect of building Zion that I don't know that I've even considered as an important part, which is to have that connection. Because how do you build one heart and one mind? Practically, I'm thinking that, okay, well, you have connection with people, you understand them, you understand why, and we're all trying to connect with the Lord. And he said himself that if you're not one, you're not mine. And if we really want to be one, we got to put the Lord first. And then we also have to be willing to, connect with the people around us. And, I think spiritually, when we do that, like temporally in this like phase of life, what happens is that we'll connect spiritually in a way that, didn't exist before. So it's really intriguing to ponder or to speculate, and most importantly, to really bring it to life, create it spiritually and then create it temporally.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on. Any final thoughts or words that you might have, Michael?
I just what you were saying, one reaction I have, and something I do mention in the book, is that I think it's important for us those of us who don't have a ton of experience with relationship and community, that we remember that it's not all going to be, easy. And that I feel like Heavenly Father, he puts us into wards and stakes full of people we don't know or we didn't necessarily choose to be with, and asks us to build Zion with those people. And so it is a challenge. It is itself a formative gospel or gospel central challenge that I think we should embrace.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And then Greg, any final thoughts that you had from this conversation that you'd like to, express?
Well, just thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it, and see that you've got some kind of a telescope or something in the background. So you got some good things going on, and
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I appreciate the invitation, guys. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes some of our guests, they, we make a series with them, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's also sometimes that, again, we just kind of follow them on social media or whatnot. So, if you have anything that you'd like to share, let me know. And I can definitely make the way open for us to hear from you. I bet a lot of we'll see how our viewers take this, interview, but I think this has been a great conversation. So, and we'll wrap it up from there. Thank you again for coming on, and thank you, MacGyver. I called you or messaged you right before, and you made yourself available, and this has been a great conversation. And as for our guest Michael, and for the real MacGyver, Greg MacGyver, and myself, David Douglas at Zion Media, we thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this, because there are a lot of men that are seeking for connection, that are isolated, maybe even in a cocoon, where they need to be broken out or need some help to break out and become something transformative. And be sure to, one thing I always try to say is subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you can get notified of our episodes. And we'll thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.